All right, let's go ahead and get started. Today is going to be kind of long, and I have to leave early, so those two things mean we have to do it quickly.
Okay.
So SQL injection, which is a very common vulnerability in most web applications out there. Basically, you're going to use SQL, which we all learned and are now perfect experts of, in order to try and basically break it into the system. And usually this happens because people are not sanitizing their inputs. So real quickly, what it is, we've seen SQL commands. Most websites use SQL as the interface to their database. So the question is, how can we attack the SQL commands? Anyone think of a way to do it? Off the top of your head? If you know the website's sending SQL commands to a database.
Intercept it?
Intercept it. Well, usually when you put your username and password in, they take that, put it in an SQL command, and ask the database, do these things match?
Yeah.
So we're not intercepting anything.
Buffer overflow?
But it's kind of like buffer overflow, except not a little different. A little different. We'll break it down even more. And you may want to select what we've got: first name, last name from users, where the ID is ID. So maybe you have some, what's the first and last name of this ID? You know, it's in a web page. You put the number in, you hit submit, and it'll give you back the information. But notice that ID is taken from the user, which means we can manipulate it. So how could we do that?
Change it to password or something?
So we change it, you could say ID equals something and 0, or 0 equals 0, which means it would give you all the first names and last names from the database. And then you could also union that with maybe some other information, you know, what's the passwords in the password table as well, and that'll be printed out as the last name. If we set ID equal to %, quote, or quote 0 equals quote 0, it would become select first last name from users, where user ID equals %. We'll say that never happens. Or 0 equals 0, which always happens. So that means that we get, what does that mean? What does that mean?
Okay, so the % means that it's not going to ignore whatever came before that?
Well, the user ID has to be %. Anything.
Oh, okay.
Which never happens.
Which I guess always happens, but yeah, we'll say never happens. Or,
0 equals 0, which always happens.
which always happens, which means the where clause is basically
Always true.
always true. So we're going to get all the first and last names
Mhm.
from the database. Was that the intended purpose of this? No, because they really just wanted you to just put in one ID value and then be able to just get the first and last name from one ID. But now you can actually query all of them. So by basically knowing how SQL works and changing it up so that your input's now an SQL command, or part of an SQL command, you can actually start manipulating what comes back from your database. Okay. So we'll go more detail on that. If that's a little confusing, that's okay. I'll try and take it step by step. Well, real quickly, our environment. So we're using, I'm going to show, what's it, DVWA, which stands for Darn Vulnerable Web Application. This
CSU
actually,
sanctioned.
huh?
CSU sanctioned.
Right, I decided to go ahead and change that real quick. It showcases that, yeah, there's numerous vulnerabilities this shows. It's a part of Metasploitable 2. So I'm just going to be showing a DVWA running on Metasploitable 2. You can always run your own by downloading the Metasploitable 2 ISO and running from there. Do keep in mind that when you're trying to set it up, the authors took a lot of precautions to prevent you from running Metasploitable on your own network, probably because it's easily broken into. Quick network environment. I have my computer. I'm going to have VirtualBox, and I'll have Kali running as well as Metasploitable 2. Those are the two IP addresses, and internally they're connected by a switch. So I'm running Kali on a separate machine because that's what I'm going to use to attack Metasploitable 2. That way all of this happens inside of a virtual, actually inside of VirtualBox, but inside of essentially a virtual network. So here's, Kali. It's going to freeze the screen sometimes. It's okay. So I can load up Firefox, and over here I have Metasploitable 2 running. Server not found. That's cute. 192.168. Which one are we? 56. Okay. 56.102. All right. See if I can remember the password. Oh, good, I did. Oh, okay. So we'll just show it right there. I tried to clean it up, but apparently that's not going to happen. All right.
Useless.
Security we set to low. That way it's easily to break into, and then I can click on the SQL Connect injection. And this is what I was talking about earlier. You can put in an ID, and I'll probably put in an ID of 1. Hit submit, and it says ID 1. The first name's admin. The surname or last name is 2 or admin. If I put in user ID 2, the ID is 2. First name Gordon, last name Brown. But if we did our little trick, or 0 equals :0 and hit submit, it's actually going to dump all of them, which was not the intended outcome for our application.
Bob Smith.
I love how the ID is something, and then it's admin, Gordon Brown, Hackme, Pablo Picasso, and Bob Smith.
Yep.
So we got all the names real quick. Okay. Real quickly, just a little more information. The key piece of information to keep in mind is that we are injecting code into the command, so changing what it does. The standard practice to prevent this problem is to scrub the SQL input before using it, aka if it has any type of special characters we're using, it'll basically escape out of them so we wouldn't have this problem. But unfortunately, not everyone does that. For example, that web page does not. And just so you know, this is, was it OWASP, actually considers this the #1 vulnerability for injection. So it's actually rampant. This type of problem is really just everywhere. Now, the DVWA example is a bit contrived, but it's basically to help you understand what's going on. Okay, so what is it? I got it loaded in. I can submit one. We see what happens. On the other hand, if we do a %1 or $1 or $0 equals 0, we can get everything. All right. Real quick note, we did not end the last quote. That's done via the code, because if you recall correctly, I did %quote or equals $0, because that last quote has to be handled by the actual command. So you don't want to put in the last quote, at least for this example. Okay, we can actually start grabbing more information. So here we have %quote or 0 equals 0 union with select of null, version pound. What does that mean? Let's see. So we got 0 equals 0 select. Was it just select? Union select, that's what it was. Union select null, version pound. Go ahead and just run that and see what that comes back. Now again, we get a lot of admins, and then down here we have, what does that look like?
Operating system and version.
Yeah, it's the operating system version. So when you're actually exploiting a lot of things, it's hard to see from back there.
Yeah, it's hard to see from here. You gotta, since you have it highlighted.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if there's a way to make this bigger. Is there a more bigger? Usually there's a little increase the size of everything.
Make it bigger. I think it's up there in the list.
Yeah.
Very
So I had a little 3 bars.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay, that's a little excessive.
That's actually a lot better.
All right, okay, that's fine. So now we have, there we go, surname Ubuntu. Now, the surname. Now, when you're doing this, it's usually a pretty good idea to open up some type of text file to keep track of what you've discovered. Let's load up GVim real quick. And then we've gotten, what do we get from this? Got that the. Alright, so the OS is this. Okay. Perfect. Alright, so how did this come about? Percent quote or 0 union select null version. Alright, what do you think's happening here?
Is the pound sign a comment?
Yeah, so the pound sign's a comment, which basically means ignore everything else. So if they try and put something in afterwards, it's just ignored. Alright. What's a union select?
It selects the union.
It puts them together.
What does it put in together?
Union, the 0, and then it selects null.
Let's look at the full command. We were to select first name, last name from users, so it's going to return first name and last name. It's going to be a list of first names and last names.
Yes.
Where the user ID is percent or 0 equals 0. So it's going to grab all the first name and the last names. And then what is it going to do? It's going to union or append to that list null and the version. So at the very end of the list, it's going to add the first name of null and the last name of version.
You know, I was going to select all of those things. That it's
Yeah.
going to select an entire list that was just created. That union that was just created between all.
Yeah, union's going to append to it, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to append another list that just contains null as the first name and version as the last name or the surname. Now notice that this null comma version has to match the number of items that it's being selected from. Make sure you do that, otherwise it will not work. Okay. Now if you notice, it came back a lot of information, most of which we didn't care about. So one thing we could have done instead, whoops, didn't want to do that. Let's go ahead and take that, paste it right there. If I were to go and 1 equals 0, and then it would just give me basically exactly what I wanted, which was this version, first name's null, and then we have the version afterwards, which actually makes it a lot easier to read what's going on. Let me go ahead and copy that and put it right down here. Okay. Notice the pound is a MySQL comment, which tells MySQL to ignore the rest of the command. This is actually incredibly useful. Keep that in mind, because then you don't have to worry about making sure the quotes match up like I just had to beforehand. So we can also get the user. Let's go ahead and do that. Notice how I'm keeping a text file of all the things I'm putting in there. You'll probably want to keep doing that. Oh, root. Oh, that's funny. And then what else are we allowed to glean from this thing? Oh, the database using the database name. That sounds good. We'll go and grab that. Oh, so the database is DVWA. All right, great. All right. Now we're going to change it up a bit. Union select null table name from information schema.tables. Anyone here know about SQL, what that means?
Is it going to show all the tables?
Show all the tables. It's going to show, it's going to select the table name from the information schema.tables. So it's going to give you, it's close.
Names of the tables?
Yeah, the table name. And we'll do that at the very, whoa, that was weird. Alright. Fortunately, we gotta type this all out again. All right, union. What are we looking? We want to select. Well, it's null, comma table. Table name from information. Was it schema? Tables. Make sure if I type that correctly. Yeah. All right. Looks like I did. Ooh, so we got a whole lot of stuff. Collections, tables, columns, DB, help category. Man, we're getting a lot. So this is a full, oh, here we go. So we have something called user. That looks useful. And accounts. So usually when, oh my goodness. Yeah, so whenever you do this, you're going to have to sift through a lot of information. Oh, it looks like you also have users, and users permissions, so you got a whole bunch of stuff. So we're going to go ahead and paste that in real quick. But just to keep track of what's going on, remember now, select first name, last name, where it's % and 1 equals 0, so it's not going to find anything here. But then you're going to union it with the select from, basically union it with null, comma, the table name from the information schema. Information schema is information in the database place stores information about all the other databases in the MySQL server and tables. The schema of the table tells you information about the table. Here's a very big warning. From my experience with MySQL, make sure you do that table name from whatever at the end. Don't try and do it before, it usually fails. In other words, make sure it's null, comma, blah, 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 not what you want, comma, null. Don't do it this way. Always have your table name at the very end. Just weird things happen with MySQL if you don't do that. Okay. Ooh. So now if we want to see if there are any tables that start with user, because if you notice that there were a lot of, that output was pretty verbose, so we want to basically trim it down a little, where table name is like user, %. Okay, let's go ahead and add that in a bit. What we got? Where table name like user. I haven't even said where I'm saving it. Let's scroll up here and try it again. All right, so we have user privileges, users, user group, user. Ooh, look at all that. And users. So that's just to show you that you can still have, I mean, you're utilizing a database or SQL, so you can help trim down the information if you want to, even inside of the command. Okay. All right, so here's where it starts to get a little tricky. How do you go from this step to this current step? This is where you have to do some guessing. Basically, you want to change, okay, what's going on here? Maybe we want to look at the users table. You notice out here, user privileges, users. Maybe we want to look at the users table. Maybe there's something inside of the users table that we want.
That sounds pretty promising.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and now here's where I always forget the commands. There's so many of them. So select, we don't want to do the table name. We now want to concatenate, was it the table name and the column? All right, good. What do you think concat will do?
Concatenate, it'll do the same thing as union did here with me.
What's concatenation? That's on strings.
Yeah.
So it's concatenating these similar to strings. So we're going to take the table name, we're going to do a line feed, and then we're going to do a column name. 0A is line feed. So new line, I should actually say. Now this time it's not from information schema, it should be from columns, right? From information.columns, great. Columns where the table name is equal to users. So hopefully this time we'll get all that. Let me write this out somewhere. Commands, there we go. Let's go ahead and see if this actually gives us something we want. Oh, here we go. So what this is telling us is it's going to concatenate table name's users, line feed, the column. So in other words, this table users has a column user ID, a column first name, a column last name, a column user, a column password, and a column avatar. What should we be grabbing now?
Definitely the avatar.
Definitely the avatar? Yeah, going for the avatar. Where else would we go? So we should take a note there. All right. Note, users has column user, and password. Oops. So what should we get? Well, we could just get all of it, or we could just simply select first name, last name, user, and password from users. Okay. Select null, then we want, what was it? Yeah. First name, last name, user, password. All right, good. First name. Now, where am I getting this from?
The users table.
Right. The fact that I just looked at this users table, which has first name, last name, user, and password. First name, user, last name, okay, user, 0A0, whoops, X0A, and then password. And we want to select this from password. Isn't that just where table name equals users? From users, yeah, right, good. So now if we crack in here real quick, scroll up. What we got? Admin's first name, admin's last name, his username's admin, and then, what does that look like? A hash. Which hash do you think that is? We got that the hash for admin, Gordon, Hackney, Pablo Picasso, and Smithy.
They said it was Ubuntu, right?
Right. Well, this is MySQL. So keep in mind that these are the passwords inside of MySQL, not inside of Ubuntu itself. Now, there is a way in some SQL environments to actually execute system commands, but hopefully they've disabled that. But, you could look that one up. Those are definitely hashes. They're actually raw MD5 no salt, which are completely broken. Hashcat did it in less than I don't even remember. It was less than a second. I hit try and I was like, here you go. So got different hashes for different guys, and I think I came out with.
The reason why utterly is
Quotes?
yeah.
No, that's to tell you that anytime someone's using raw MD5 with no salt, they're not even trying.
Oh.
Because
Well,
there's even a rainbow table for
Yeah,
this.
you wouldn't use quotes for that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay?
Nothing else? All right.
Yeah, thinking about that.
It's all right. So yeah, I just run hashcat on it real quick, and it came back pretty fast. Okay. Let me in. That's always my favorite password. All right. So the problem here, and the reason why this will take you some time, is you have to really sit down and decipher what the command you believe is being used and how you're going to put the whole command together to execute something and get back something meaningful. In MySQL, which is what you're using in the lab, the pound is used to comment out the rest. The main issue is getting back information from the web page, which can become very, very tiresome. That is why I highly recommend you create, while you're working on it, create the commands that you're putting in so you can always copy and paste, because you're probably going to be doing that a lot, trying to get these SQL commands just right. Also, this presentation was highly adapted from this website, although I did put in some very needed tidbits, especially for your lab, that were not on that website. I found a couple of issues, but maybe the website will be a little more useful for you, because it actually goes over this pretty well. All right, any questions? No? You got it, Carla?
We'll see.
We'll see. All right.